And so I started working with docs, and they wanted to do lifestyle medicine as, okay, let's pull out the prescription pad and let's write broccoli on the prescription pad and hand it to the patient, think that's lifestyle medicine. It's like, no, 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 no. This is not how this is supposed to go. This is not what this is about. This is not lifestyle medicine. This is not quality care.
Welcome to Back to the Future podcast. My name is Victor Sadia, and I talk with brilliant minds and hearts of people who want to uproot and transform the current health and wellness paradigm. Dr. Marc Braman is a physician and co-founder of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. He served as secretary, president, and executive director of the organization, contributing to its early development and consolidation as a professional field. He continues his clinical and conceptual work focused on whole person health. In this episode, we move into a deeper question beneath healthcare itself. Not what we do, but how we understand the human being we're trying to help. We begin with the early days of lifestyle medicine and the intention to build something rigorous and evidence-based, but quickly arrive at a more fundamental limitation: trying to change behavior without understanding where it comes from. From there, the conversation opens into a different territory: the frameworks that shape clinical practice, the reduction of patients into problems to be solved, and the possibility of engaging with people not as objects of intervention, but as processes in relationship. We explore what it would mean to practice medicine from that place, where connection is not only a tool but the goal, and where the role of the physician shifts from fixing to engaging. In a moment where technology is redefining knowledge, this conversation asks something more essential. If we don't understand the human, what exactly are we doing when we call it care? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Dr. Marc Braman. Marc, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Braman, yes.
Braman. Good. Where is it from?
My name?
Yeah.
European, we think German, but we're not 100% sure.
Okay. So before we hit record, I was telling you about, I think it's a Jewish proverb that asks, what is truer than truth? And the reply is the story, you know? So
Yeah.
I would love to begin with stories. And one story that I'm very interested in is you are one of the co-founders of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine more than 20 years ago. And would love if you can tell me a few anecdotes on those first years before the college came together, and once it started, what happened with the college itself, but also with you personally. What began changing as a physician and leader?
Sure. So just a brief bit of context, personally for me, I actually grew up swearing the one thing I would never do is be a doctor. Obviously, that didn't quite pan out as I was imagining life, but that's in its own interesting journey. But in medical school, I was part of a lifestyle interest group. There were students and some faculty at the university where I was, which was Loma Linda University. They were interested in this for health and for medicine. And then after I got done with residency, preventive medicine residency was as close as I could get to a whole person or lifestyle-based approach. So that's what I did. And then I was in the area and adjunct faculty, and there was a group of us that were newly graduated as well as older faculty that were meeting and saying, what can we do? Healthcare needs something different. We talked about naturopathic medicine. We talked about all different things. The long and the short of it is that John Kelly ended up founding the American College of Lifestyle Medicine out of this group of like 10 of us that were getting together periodically at the university. No university support. The organization kind of went along for 2 or 3 years. This was in 2004 it was founded. 2006 to 2007 it was kind of, they partnered with the university, School of Public Health on some conferences and things, but it kind of wasn't going anywhere. Everybody was really busy with their personal lives, and it was kind of going down the tubes. At that point, I hadn't been that involved, but they asked me to start getting involved again as secretary, which I started to do. And then they were saying, let's just shut it down. We tried. It was a good idea. I thought it was way too important. I thought it needed to happen, but there was no money, there was no nothing, just a big mess. But it became my child, if you will. I stepped out of the position working for a hospital that I was in an integrative medicine clinic, set up my own practice. But basically, the College of Lifestyle Medicine became my full-time job. I felt I have no desire to be female or pregnant, but I felt like I had this child in my womb, if you will. And everything from cleaning up mess to building websites, building newsletters, doing interviews, starting to establish standards, building the advisory board, of world-class scientists in exercise science, nutrition science, former US Surgeon Generals, to really set this on a path of evidence-based, first class, first quality healthcare. Because most of what had been in the space was various forms of integrative medicine, complementary medicine, alternative medicine. And it was, it would kind of be popular for a while, and then all this stuff would get piled on top of it, and all kinds of non-evidence based um, things that made it go down the tubes. And I didn't want that to happen with this. So we took a very intentional course of remaining evidence based, clean, not trying to cover everything to everybody. Um, and that was a good course. So that's kind of the short version, if you will. So it was kind of my baby for about 5 years. And one of the things that I personally feel really good about that I don't think is evident, and I think a lot of it's just inherent to the space, but I was very aware of the opportunity to create a culture. Most of healthcare is very dead. It's got to get my CME credits, I got to go through my hoops, keep doing my thing. I was very aware of this opportunity to create culture. So everything was done very intentionally. I don't know if you want to call that attitude or intention or it's kind of this whole person thing. But it needed to be fundamentally different. It needed to have a different spirit or vibe or whatever you want to call it, a different energy, a different perspective that I see as being inherently whole person. Now, healthcare as a whole is coming at things from a very reductionistic perspective. Explain the biochemistry to justify the human. That's not how we're wired, that's not how we really work, but that is the current perspective. And so this was decidedly different. That's the ACLM early story part.
Yeah. And let's dig in a bit in this reductionistic lens that you're saying that conventional medicine has. When was it for you as a physician in training evident that a biological approach, a physiological approach, wouldn't suffice?
Oh, in my own journey, when I was back in college, I ended up leaving college mid-year, my second year, to go figure out life, figure out God, life, the whole thing. I'd been brought up in a certain paradigm, just kind of put that all on the shelf and needed to go figure it out for myself, which was challenging. All my friends and family thought I was crazy, but it was one of the best things that I ever did. And it was
Which
out of that I started.
sorry to interrupt, but which you were crazy in the sense that you were questioning the paradigm where for everyone it was evident, and you said, "Well, I'm questioning it," and that's the definition of crazy.
Okay, then I can go with that definition. So it was one of the best things I ever did, but it was out of that I got really interested in health. And so when I ended up back in college, at first not knowing why I was back in college, I was thinking a lot more along health lines and just started to take things that I was interested in. So that's where, so my framing and, where did this come from at what point in time? I don't know as it was a single point in time. It was a progressive journey. But I started seeing things much more whole picture from that personal stepping out of college process.
And I think it's interesting that college and this education system really compartmentalizes the knowledge, and in a sense, when you step out, you say you feel that you know topics might be interesting, but they felt fragmented or separated between themselves. And once you step out, you say, yes, I want to go back, but I would love to understand the whole picture, not only a few inches of the picture here and there. Is that a correct? Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I also think that for whatever reason, my personality has always been a little bit this direction. I'm an inventor, an entrepreneur, and explorer by nature. My heroes, the storybooks I read as a child were the explorer kinds of people. So I've always been sort of leaning towards that direction, wanting to understand, wanting to see what's new, wanting to see what's beyond the horizon, that we don't normally see. And it's been part of my journey.
I identify a lot with you, and so let's jump to where we're now. I was contacted by you a few months ago because you're writing. I would love for you to explain it rather than me, but a new ontological approach to understanding what are we doing in the healthcare arena. Like, you've played a key role in establishing lifestyle medicine, which already represents a shift in healthcare. But your work now seems to question the underlying assumptions about the person itself. Um, you seem to be saying that modern healthcare, correct me if I'm wrong, is built around controlling outcomes from the outside, like through protocol, standardization, interventions, where the patient becomes, in a sense, something fixed that we can manage. And you're saying that approach probably is not the best. Is that accurate? And if so or not, please explain, why do you believe that a whole person approach is needed as much as I think it's needed?
Excellent questions. Yes, current context is that I'm working on leading the development of a certification in whole person health with the Board of Lifestyle Medicine. Bigger picture and story context is I got done for 5 or 6 years building the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Not just myself, other people involved, but it was full time for me. For other people, we'd have a meeting quarterly kind of thing. But I got done building the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and turned my attention towards, okay, well then let's help people operationalize this, put it into practice. Started working with docs and hospitals. But it became quickly apparent that we had a major problem. And it's essentially the reductionistic problem, the reductionistic framework that we've all been sort of dyed in the wool in. And so I started working with docs, and they wanted to do lifestyle medicine as, okay, let's pull out the prescription pad and let's write broccoli on the prescription pad and hand it to the patient, think that's lifestyle medicine. It's like, no, 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 no. This is not how this is supposed to go. This is not what this is about. This is not lifestyle medicine. This is not quality care. So the conclusion I came to, what became apparent, is we didn't have frameworks, meaning what's in our heads, how we process and interpret and look at humans. We didn't have frameworks that would allow us to do a different, better kind of healthcare. We had the reductionistic frameworks, which has sent me on this journey for most of the last 10 years. Well, what are these frameworks? If we're going to do a different kind of healthcare, we have to have fundamentally different frameworks. And I'd explore space. I got into patient space. I was going to Stanford Medicine X conferences, which was very dynamic. It's a mix of patients and entrepreneurs and healthcare people from all over the world. Did a number of talks in that context, but kept having to go deeper. And then I'd worked with some startups, realized that their model of success is just sell out to the highest bidder. Whatever that means for the patients, that doesn't matter. And I came to the conclusion that unless we understand humans, all else is for naught. It doesn't really matter. We can build the coolest app on the planet that does awesome lifestyle medicine. It's just going to get sold up the food chain and just make the current problems worse, strengthen the existing players that all they care about is money. So unless we can engage humans at this fundamental level, nothing else matters. So within these frameworks that I ended up, discovering, developing, whatever you want to call it, I see it as just seeing reality more clearly. The fundamental piece was this understanding of how humans work, what I refer to as an ontology at this point. That's where this came from, but whether it's lifestyle medicine or whether it's healthcare as a whole, treating people as the broken toe in room 3 or this faulty biochemical pathway we need to put a medication into to try to fix it is just fundamentally grossly deficient. The other piece of this is as I turn to developing models and implementation, I use my own practice as a laboratory. And I went to look in the science. Okay, well, where are the models of how humans work so we can do lifestyle medicine really effectively? Because they need to do their living style differently. And I looked, I couldn't find anything, and I looked some more, and I was like, you're kidding me. We're this smart, and we have this much science, and we really have no tangible grasp on how human beings work that I can use in clinical practice? This is ridiculous. So part of it was this realization of how grossly lacking we still were intangibles of doing even just behavior change.
Yeah, yeah, and to build on that, Mark, I thank you for this conversation. Is like in my experience, like I studied sociology and I started seeing this trend of growing chronic disease over the past decades. And the cultural discourse was blame the patient, blame the consumer. They are the ones who are not behaving correctly. They're not eating correctly. They don't exercise. They are basically naughty children that don't behave. Or in the worst case, they are just very lazy, you know? But then I started realizing that, that's only a narrative, because at the end of the day, as you just described, the patients, the people, we are embedded in a cultural, commercial, corporate world where those narratives get created and get normalized. And at the end of the day, we're blaming the victim, meaning the patients, because the changes in consumerism, in changes in lifestyle happen because of the economic, political, cultural world moved us in that direction. So that added a layer of understanding that we are systemic. And in a sense, when I talk about diabetes or cancer, it's not only that we can explain it through naming the actors, either institutional or individuals, but at the end of the day, as humanity, as a civilization, we are diabetes. By doing what we do is that diabetes happened in the world. It's not that something went off because there are bad people out there. It's just the way we constructed our frameworks, and companies wanted to maximize their profits. And a consequence, I wouldn't say an error, a consequence is that the diabetes has gone up, not only in a single country, but we are seeing it all over the world. So what do you think about that in terms of understanding and reaching this conversation of the whole person health and how the behavior is, I wouldn't say managed, because there's no specific hand moving everything, but yeah, influenced by all these forces.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the systematic perspective. I think it's much more reflective of reality. What I observe is, on the one hand, the blame the patient perspective, their naughty child. On the other hand, it's all environment. And we just need to fix the built environment and then everything's going to be okay. I don't see either one of them as solving the problems. And we really have to understand the whole human experience if we're going to be effective at this.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that, because at the end of the day, they say that paradigms change one funeral at a time. Like we need to forget who we are, and the only way of doing that is just being irrelevant. And the most significant way of being irrelevant is just dying. So I love what you're saying, because at the end of the day, we're getting to the root of the problem, and that doesn't make it simpler. It's just that if we want to really affect the system, we have to think in this very, I wouldn't say metaphysical, but at least it's not as easy as controlling one or two variables. We're talking about who the hell we are. So that's why I'm very interested in your approach, because it's really ambitious, not only for medicine, but in general.
So I believe you're talking about the ontology, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So, yes, and maybe for our listeners, just a brief description will be helpful. So, essentially, we humans experience our existence in particular ways. We are wired to learn. We pop out of the womb, we got to learn to walk and talk and chew gum and be doctors and all this kind of stuff. We learn, 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 learn. We learn by asking questions, not necessarily verbal. We reach out, we touch something, that's asking a question with our sensation. All of our questioning, in essence, boils down to the 6 one-word questions. In English, it's the who, what, where, why, how, when. It turns out those have a relationship to each other, an order, a dynamic, if you will. We live in the where and the when, time and space. We call it environment, we call it whatever we want. We live in time and space. The what is the physical, the senses, the behaviors, the physical body. And like layers of an onion, this is the external layer. It's our words, our speech. The next layer in is the how. It's the energy, the oomph, the emotions, the drive. The next layer in is the why, or the mental, the rational, the interpretive. Let's make sense out of this. Let's compare it to prior memories. How do we define this thing? And then at the core is the who, which often we would refer to as our being or spirit. It's our identity, it's our worth, it's our relativeness, connectedness, to our people, to the world. It's our deepest values, what's important to us, and it's in our intentions. So we are also very much like the neurons that fill our heads. We're designed to connect. All the parts and pieces are there to support connection. And we have all kinds of different connections. But our fundamental or most important connections are in the horizontal with each other, and in a vertical sense, God, higher power, universe, ancestors. It's just what humans do. So this ontology is phenomenological, meaning it's just observed phenomena. We're not concocting some theory and then trying to force reality into it. It's just we're observing how things are. We're observing how humans function, how they experience their existence. So we humans experience our existence, I call it the human experience, or the human experience of reality, in these 6 fundamental domains. And our perceiving is from the outside in. Our physical senses detect something, it goes through our current emotional state filters, gets colored, changed, amplified, or decreased, then gets to our mental interpretation. What does this mean? How does this compare with prior facts? And how does this relate to me? My place in the world, what's important to me at my deepest level, and my place in this world. And we express from inside out. Who we are, tasks are mental with coming up with options and pros and cons, generates emotional oomph, moves us to physical action back out into the world. So that's the construct. That's the ontology.
Yeah, and how are you, like, I agree 100%. At the end of the day, I think, you know, some people would call this more like a philosophy, and we tend to say, philosophy is great for the books and for fireside chats that last 3 hours and don't get to any specific conclusion, and that's fun. And they and people say that like if it were separate from pragmatism, from achieving things in the real world. However, what you're seeing here and what you're saying, I think, is that if you're practicing medicine or whatever, but let's say medicine from a specific framework, you are also strengthening the philosophy behind that way of practicing, because in action it's just you're doing it. So what you're saying here is that we need to talk about that philosophical part and bring it in back to our actions as health professionals or as members of the community, as voters, as consumers, as citizens, so that we can integrate this philosophy into the more pragmatic and changing the way we're approaching the things we say we want to change. Is that a fair approach? And if so or not, tell me a bit how this philosophical framework, and I'm doing a quote unquote here, is now, or you are visualizing to enter the practices of health professionals and the institutions of at least the world of lifestyle medicine.
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. Is this a philosophy? Is it a framework? Is it ontology? And I wrestled with this because I wasn't worried about what to call it. I was just trying to discover reality, trying to just see it more clearly. And so some time back, I was going with some process with AI. What is this thing? How would you describe it? Is it this? Is it this? Is it? And it started essentially telling me, well, this is an ontology. And actually, a physician chaplain friend at Stanford first brought this up to me. Oh, you're talking about an ontology. But AI ended up saying it was a meta-ontology. Go, oh, that's interesting. And it's pre-paradigm. Oh, that's interesting. So just doing a lot of deep processing. What is this thing? Because I wasn't trying to do anything other than just understand so we could do better healthcare. I could better help people. But that really is what it is. It really is an ontology, which is the study of being. But ontology also has a second definition, which is the order or structure of things. And it is also that. So is this just a philosophy? I've come not to see it as a philosophy. It is phenomenologically based, and it's just describing the patterns seen in how humans do their existence. So it's kind of reverse engineered in that sense. It's just a record of what is. In terms of clinical practice, this is where it gets fun. So I've created a worksheet for my patients, like a cross section through this, the perceiving 4 steps in, expressing 4 steps out into the context of what the person's dealing with, the who's and the other people and circumstances and whatnot. And I'll pull this out and we'll start filling this out with patients. They're getting an outcome, their physical behavior just not working for them. They have diabetes, they got hypertension, whatever it is. They don't like this outcome, but they don't know how to do something different. So, well, here's how you work. Explain it very quickly. They get it. It's not rocket science. Okay, well, here's our 8 fundamental choices, the choices you're already making that's getting you this result. Is there anything, what do you see yourself doing in each of these places and what's working for you and what's not? So I'm just teaching them how they work and letting them, facilitating them filling this out. And it often gets really interesting and really fun. Because they start seeing, oh, I thought I had no choices. And what, I got 8 big choices? Oh, well, yeah, there's where I'm going off the rails. Oh, yeah, I could totally do that different. But it was not at all on their radar before. They had no idea. The other thing that for me as a provider I find very helpful, I've come to have, I call it a HUD, a heads-up display. Like these things that project onto a windshield of a fighter jet or an automobile, your basic information. So I have this visual in my head, and as I'm reading their history forms and I'm talking to them, I'm just filling in this HUD in my head. Okay, these pieces here, got that filled in. Oh, I got a gap here, let's ask some more questions, fill in that gap. I'm starting to see what's working for them and what's not working. And then that can further guide my conversation and further questions. And again, they start self-discovering. They start realizing, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't put those pieces together. So it's a very, on one hand, it sounds like a philosophy. On the other hand, when you start applying it in a structured process, it's very tangible. It's very functional. And I find it gets us to what really matters surprisingly efficiently.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend hours trying to go through all the details as a normal reductionistic process. Tell me about your exercise and how many minutes each day of what type. Is it cardio? Is it, resistance? And we don't really get anywhere. Yeah. Versus we understand how they function and or are dysfunctioning, and we get to what really matters. And then we get much bigger change in behavior, much faster.
I love this because at the end of the day, the discussion about health, at least in the individual level, is a discussion of who the person is ontologically, like with all these 6 realms. It's not that the person has diabetes and then you go with the prescription of eat broccoli so that the person continues being the same person, but now with broccoli and then without
Yes.
diabetes. It's a new person emerging where diabetes doesn't have a place for.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And this is sort of my pet peeve in the lifestyle medicine space. You talk about the science, you go to the conferences, the presentations, everybody's talking about behavior change, behavior change, behavior change. Fine, yes, we need behavior to change to get a different physical outcome, but where do we think behavior comes from? Hello? And it's a lot more than just a little bit of motivational interviewing. It's seeing a whole human being, and that the lifestyle is just the final end product outcome of all this internal upstream. And then our focus becomes not just behavior and telling them what to do or not do, most of which they frankly already know. It's just not working for them. But to your point, they're becoming a different human being. I believe deeply we are wired to learn to become successful, competent human adults. Tapping into that, my job is no longer to fix their behavior. My job is to facilitate them succeeding in becoming a self-managing, successful human. And in that process, okay, let me teach you how you work, and let's start looking at what's working and what's not working for you so you can
Absolutely.
become more competent.
Yeah, at the end of the day, those philosophical questions that we believe won't take us anywhere, they're actually taking us everywhere, because talking about who we are, what is death, what is time, what is spirituality, what is guilt, what is hope, what is God, those big questions, they might not have an answer, but allowing the person to question it, in him or herself, goes to the root of behavior, goes to the root of why you've been doing what you've been doing so far.
Yes. And the challenge we have in healthcare and in society larger that's adopted this reductionistic perspective of essentially only matter matters and the rest is along for the ride, the emotional, mental, spiritual is just along for the physical ride. That's very problematic. But there's so much potential to do things fundamentally differently, to get a completely different outcome. I'm actually currently working on another graphic to illustrate this contrast between the reductionistic perspective and the whole person perspective. And essentially, most of healthcare is what we do to a patient. We do pills and procedures from the outside to change their biochemistry, change their physical status. And even when you get into integrative medicine, a lot of it is, okay, acupuncture and chiropractic, and you're still doing stuff to the patient largely. Take these pills, supplements versus prescription. Lifestyle is starting to get into the internal. That's what the patient controls. But to then see that they're not just the physical, but they're also the emotional and the mental and the spirit of being in this dynamic in context. And so the graphic is the providers are in the external space doing things to the patient. That's the typical reductionistic perspective. The whole person perspective is the provider moves in the graphic to be parallel with these four internal domains, partnering with the patient in their health journey, engaging them there so that they, again, become a competent, self-managing adult, and we can facilitate the external things too as healthcare providers.
I love this. And a lot of, I don't think many health professionals and physicians specifically, I'm generalizing, of course, don't like to be demoted to a lesser hierarchy. Like they've thought, I've studied for 15 years. Why would I stand on the same plane as a patient, But at the end of the day, I think it's the only way to call it an ontology and an effective intervention, which the word in this sense doesn't make sense. It's basically because even this person is still in its quest. Like no person has arrived, no person is complete. No, everyone is regenerating all the time, health professionals included. And I would venture to say that as long as the partnership with a health professional and a patient is, I would say, provocative. I wouldn't say that life-changing for both, but provocative enough for both of them, or is that this alliance can work and keep growing over time, because it's still changing both parties, because they're both
Yes.
open to understanding new understandings and new questions, and not trying to say, oh no, I'm done with my work and now I can teach others.
Yes, and to your point, and why this makes sense functionally is that we are wired to connect as our highest overarching function. And when we as providers come at the patient from this external, relatively disconnected perspective, we're backwards to human wiring. We're not functioning with human wiring versus, oh, let's actually connect as human beings. Oh, well, that's how we're wired. All the parts and pieces are there to support that. Oh, that is story. Story is about connection.
Yeah.
So the fundamental truth or the fundamental reality is this is the overarching function for which all the parts and pieces exist. And this gets really tangible in that we in healthcare, part of how we do things backwards is we want to put people into support groups to get them to do a behavior. You can connect, but only so we get the behavior change. No, 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 no. Connection is the point. That is the goal. That is what aligns everything. That is what activates everything. Healthy, positive connection. Everything else will come online, power up, do what it's supposed to do if it is supporting positive, healthy connection.
I love this. I love this. If we take this statement as let's take it as a true as a like the connection is the goal. It's the end of itself.
Yes.
Let's say that we have magic powers and we magically uh, get this statement to every health professional out there. That's the main thing on their dashboard. What would you envision that would happen to the health professions, knowing that this is the goal? Like, how would that keep? What would be the role in the future, let's say, of the health professionals, knowing that connection is the goal? How would they conduct themselves in society, in their clinical practices, and as members of the community? What do you think that can really happen if we make that point and understand it?
It would be radically different. But a lot of this gets back to what humans have always done. The typical medicine man or shaman in a village, they were very embedded in the village and they would involve the whole village or the town or the community in their healing rituals. It was about connection. So I think it's a huge paradigm flip from where we're at. And in that regard, it's a significant challenge. It's a reframing, a reprogramming of what's in our heads and our whole perspective and processing. But in the context of AI, in the context of, at least in the US, of healthcare sort of in the process of imploding, things are going to be radically different. Patients won't need doctors just to be smart, which is largely what they do at this point. Doctors are smart, they have more knowledge, they have more. That's going to go away. And AI is going to be smarter than your doctor. But what AI can't do is actual care. So part of the discussions we're having in our whole person certification development is trying to get our fingers around these, not for AI purposes, but just get our fingers around these core concepts and the core. So in this ontology, let me go a little bit deeper there. What is it that makes a real connection? When you look at this, what is happening in real connections is value is flowing. Some people call it care. Some people call it compassion. Some people call it love. Some people call it, unconditional positive regard. Whatever you want to call it, functionally, it is value. Value as a thing, a noun, and valuing as a verb. This other person, this other human is important enough that I'm spending my time and attention and focus to fully engage with them. I am, as a provider, valuing them. I'm letting them know they are important. Hopefully they're receiving that value. And then this fundamental connection is the wiring, if you will, is trust, the wire that connects us, which is both freedom and safety. It's like the metal part of the wire and the insulating part of the wire. You have to have both or it just doesn't work. You have to have both freedom and safety to have trust. Through this wire flows value and it goes back and forth in this dynamic relationship. So the thing that AI is never going to be able to do is this human experience of real value flowing in this dynamic. We can chat with AI. We can have it tell us facts. but it's not going to do this human stuff. And that's where our fundamental need as human beings is for value
Yeah, I
and to
love
be part
this.
of this life dynamic, in the whole picture and back and forth and in all dimensions
Yeah,
that healthcare would and could and should be about.
yeah, I love this. Um, because AI can learn the narrative side of care. Like it can ask questions, it can make you feel that you are understood, that you're not alone, uh, in the linguistic sense, because that's the interaction. But
Yes.
even if you have that deep conversation, even if you cry, even if you tell it all your secrets, even if the only entity who has that you trusted enough to tell your secrets, at the end of the session, you still feel I need something else, which basically is probably just looking at another human in the eye, or just grabbing his hand, or receiving a hug,
Yes.
and that's there, which I love, because at the end of the day, like no one who studied for 15 years in a grueling setting, as you know most physicians learn, would want to know that their knowledge has been surpassed by a machine, but it will. But there's something that you have, and all the other humans have, that you can, as a health professional, with your experience, with the name you have gotten for yourself, and the amount of patients that you have been sitting in the same place with, that an AI doesn't have, and that then you can capitalize in the sense of your profession, and that's what it's being called from you. I think, at least in these times. I don't know in 100 years. I don't know, but at least in the next decade, I think it will this way. Like you have the power to gather patients and to talk to them from human to human, and we need to build like clinical models and economic models so that that makes sense also for the health professional, knowing that its knowledge, it's not the main asset or value here.
Yes. The other piece of this that is sort of big picture, we can teach AI to replicate human function, to pattern after us. It doesn't have the biology, it doesn't have the reality, it's not tangible. But as we talk about and look at systems, as much as they need changing, and this is part of my own journey, I'm a systems thinker. I love making systems better. But until we get to the level of human nature and human experience and get it working properly, again, all the rest is a moot point. I get contacted almost daily with entities wanting to buy my medical practice so they can repackage it and sell it up the food chain to the existing players to make more money and milk the system further. Unless we humans fundamentally function differently, whether it's as a provider or as a healthcare CEO, this is not going to end well. It can't. So when Gandhi, who's quoted as saying, "Be the change you would see in the world," it's actually not a direct quote, but the concept is there. There's actually a deep truth there. Our human experience comes from the being level. And if that is not being driven by, doing good to our fellow human, valuing other human beings, it just can't work. It is inherently unsustainable. Versus healthcare historically has largely been done for benefiting our fellow humans. Let's help each other. Let's take care of each other. Yeah, we need to make the finances work somehow, but it's not fundamentally about that. That's a secondary thing. So we're doing things backwards as humans, especially in the United States, everything becoming commercialized, capitalized. It's not about patients, it's about profits. And until it's about patients again, it's just inherently unsustainable.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep, my friend.
It is, but it's beautiful. And to me, I'm excited about it, not at all because I think I'm so smart. I see this as just how did it take me so long to see what was always in front of my face? But for me, it provides a tangible way of processing the whole picture, whether it's with a patient, whether it's within healthcare, or whether it's within any aspect of human experience. Business. I just saw something in the news this morning. All these Silicon Valley people are going to this high dollar, retreat thing to basically deal with the physical, emotional, mental, and spirit or being things and get them straightened out and working again. Like, well, yeah. So, in all domains of life, to understand the fundamentals of how we work and see where they dysfunction and how we can correct them is very powerful.
How old are you, if I can ask? If not, we can erase it later.
I am 58.
Yeah. So when was your last big crisis in your life? And I wouldn't say that it must been like a horrific crisis, but crisis in the sense of a deep transformation of who you are.
I guess yeah, there's some of those points like my time in college, but for me, it's a journey. And, there's points in time that it goes faster and slower, and there's things that feel like a crisis to me, but maybe they really aren't. There's other times that don't feel so stressful, but maybe I grow a lot. So I guess I think of it a little bit differently relative
Yeah.
to the
So let me
question.
reframe the question. Like, um, what are the parts of your life that you're less satisfied with, in a sense? Those are the things that, you know, you want to keep changing, in a sense.
Well, I definitely am very engaged in continuing to learn. I want to see more. I want to understand it more deeply. I want to understand how to translate it for other people. So I'm kind of, it's almost a joke in my family. I'm thinking so much of the time it's like, come back. You know? But when we have these challenges, like this opportunity to develop a certification in whole person health, and we're working through that process, and we want to use this ontology to help us really get human, but then we go and we look at what exists in the whole person care space, and many others have been, working on this and doing some really good work. National Academies of Sciences and the Veterans Health Administration, they're doing some really good stuff. But the challenge I keep running into is they're still coming at it from an external perspective. They're talking about systems and processes and paperwork. And let's ask what matters to the patient. Great, we're starting to get into that deeper level, but we're still fundamentally positioned in an external position. We don't know how to operationalize actually engaging with the human.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been up to my eyeballs, over my eyeballs, wrestling with this and navigating this landscape between we can't just do consensus from that and think we're going to end up with something worth doing. And normally in healthcare, we try to do consensus, and I get it, and I'm a fan. So this tension between, no, we have to start with the human, and this is our best understanding of the human. And then how do we work with these existing players and systems that are coming at it from this external perspective, collaboratively, constructively, because they're great people trying to do good stuff, but not let go of the human in the process.
Yeah. And would you say that you personally are taking care of the person, of the being Mark, trying to be this big advocate for change, while at the same time knowing that Mark is in its own process and that it won't um, postpone its own, let's say, self-sufficiency and even happiness to the outcome, but rather just being in the process? Do you take care of Mark in
Ah,
that way?
I understand better where you're coming from. Good points. I think the best way to answer that is just to share my life philosophy at this point in time. And it sounds funny. My wife kind of doesn't like how I say it, but it is what it is. Shut up and get out of the way. My perspective is life is happening on this planet. You look at the universe, this cold vacuum of space, it's, barren rock, it's dead. But they've got this little blue planet where this special thing of life is going on. And it's amazing and it's beautiful and it just keeps going. And I just go unconscious every night and I get recharged and I wake up recharged. Like, what is this? I didn't do anything all night long, and I'm being given more life for the next day. This is wild. I don't understand it all. I have some ideas, but this is amazing. How can I show up, be present to participate in this? How can I have such a privilege to be part of this? So, whatever our philosophies or belief systems or cosmologies, there's this fundamental reality of life keeps happening and keeps being given to us on this planet. When I do my smartness, oh, I know how to fix things. We just do A, B, and C, and everything's going to be all cool. And I'm going to fix the environment. I'm going to fix the people. It's all just, Mark, shut up and get out of the way.
You see, this is why I do this podcast. Now I realize it and I'm putting words to it. It's basically that. It's that we don't know who we are, what we're here for. Even if there are millions and millions of galaxies out there, or we're just in a microchip, in a simulation, in a hard drive somewhere, we don't know. But the felt experience and the awe and being amazed about whatever is out there, I think it's enough enough to say, well, I want to be fully involved in life for the time that I have. And I love this podcast and these honest conversations, because at the end of the day is that asking big questions, if we end up in amazement just by looking out there and saying, wow, this is probably too complicated, even if the future seems very gloom, doesn't matter. It's still something like amazing. And I think that's not only one of the definition of health, maintaining awe and amazement, but also it's like it recalibrates whoever you think, well, I think I am in my identity, and I don't take myself too seriously. Like the same way we're saying, Mark, just get out of the way.
Yes. And to your point, health for Mark, whole person. When I first got in with medical school, the reductionistic frameworks I was taught basically put a lot of burden on me to fix my patients, solve their problems, come up with the right chemistry. And that's really just not how life in the universe is structured. It's not dependent on me. And the more I can realize that and allow life to happen and not have to be smart, not have to understand it all, to not know what's around the next corner, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I'm very glad that, you're 58. You still have another 58 years to live. And
I'll go with that.
yeah, yeah, I know that I knew that it was an offer that you wouldn't refuse. Um, but no matter how much time we still have, I think that working and being from that perspective, I cherish that in you as a friend, but also as a lifestyle medicine leader, because you've gone through a lot of steps, you've gone through a lot of patients, you've gone through a lot of politics and institutional things, and now we are like getting to a core where I know in the next 20, 30 years, you'll be working from that way of at least wanting to understand what is real for you. And I think beautiful things will come out of that. And I am really excited to see not only the papers, but the people you'll touch and the frameworks you'll come up with, so that younger generations can get to the point. I don't think we can get to the point immediately, because we need to leave, we need to fall, we need to get frustrated, a lot of things, so that we understand the value. But at least having in the lifestyle medicine community, in the healthcare community, more of these frameworks and teachers, or not teachers, but at least companions who are asking the metaphysical, ontological, existential, whatever you want to call them, things that are at the base of who we are. And from there, we are building an industry or rebuilding it as we would like to think we are.
I love it. Yes, let's do good things. Be part of this much greater good.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark, tell me, just to finish up here, what's your plan? How can we? What would be your advice? You met me. I'm a bit philosophically inclined, but I'm also I would say, the chief strategist, at least at this point, of the Mexican Association of Lifestyle Medicine, and I'm trying to build a strategy for not the next year or so, but the next 15 to 20 years. And I don't mean to be arrogant to know exactly what will happen in the future, but I want to think in those terms so that our goals are as ambitious as I think we can, and not just thinking about surviving next year, but trying to build at least fundamentals so that we're still here in 20 years and we're still relevant, and that we are really adding value to our community and ecosystem.
So I think the question is, what thoughts or advice or guidance would I have? I think it would be just to keep the eye and the focus on the patient, on the human, and seeing them as a whole human. When you look at history, for instance, this is kind of funny at this point, taking a blood pressure. When that was first a thing, only doctors could take blood pressures because they were the only ones qualified. And then nurses could do it, and then MAs can do it, and now you can do it on yourself at home. So with each wave of new technology or advancement or progress, there's this resistance to it. There's this, hey, this is my space, don't mess with it. AI is going to fundamentally change things. Physicians will kick and scream because this is their space. If our focus is on the patient, it doesn't matter. If the focus is, how do I facilitate this human being a whole, healthy human? Fine, let's use AI, let's use any tool we can. Let's be leading that charge. Let's be making the future instead of being a victim of progress. Let's shape it. And that, again, that fundamentally relieves a lot of pressure and a lot of angst. I don't have to fuss and kick about AI. I don't have to worry about the healthcare changes or lack thereof or the chaos if I keep my eye on the patient. Okay, we have to navigate these realities. Sure, fine, let's do that. Let's do that well. But life is so much better when you're just focused on seeing this other human being and being of best service to them. Everything else falls into place.
I love this. I love this advice. Thank you so much. And I think that thinking about and even looking for our own obsolescence, becoming obsolete because we have given enough value so that people and systems can run without us, I think that's not only generous, but I think it will keep us in the game because it's a good focus. Like, not how to make myself indispensable, but rather the other way.
Yes.
And that will add much more value.
Yes. I love that perspective. I'm always thinking and telling my patients, my job is to make it so you don't need me.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote a piece, I'll send it to you. It's called The End of Lifestyle Medicine. And it practically calls for that in the future, we don't need the field. Like, we erase it from our vocabulary because it's already the normality. So that lifestyle medicine doesn't have a job to play anymore in years' time. So I'll send it to you.
Yeah, cool. I love it.
Yeah, well, Mark, I don't know if you want to add anything else. I'm very happy with this conversation. Thank you so much. But please add whatever you would like. This is a space for you.
Just want to say a big thank you. And as you alluded to earlier, we had such a lovely conversation by email initially. I love being able to think deeply and very broadly with another person. And so this has been delightful for me. And I'm hopeful that as we go forward and the work that I've been doing, I hope can be of benefit to many. And in that sense, so people don't need me, but that we can help each other become the successful, fulfilled humans enjoying our existence that I believe we're wired to be.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mark. It's Monday morning. Your week is starting. So I just wish that all these good vibes and at least putting our attention on the things that seem most important to us keeps resonating throughout your week. And you know that you are in the right place, and you feel satisfaction just by knowing it. Yeah, that's my wish for you.
Thank you, Victor. And similar, much goodwill to you and to your listeners.
Thank you, Mark. You have a great week, and let's keep the discussion open and the friendship growing.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Thank you, my friend.